Let's install PostgreSQL for Mac. So what we first do is open a web browser and navigate to postgresql.org, as you can see in the address bar there. Once the page loads, let's go and click on Download. Now let's scroll down and let's click on Mac OS. And we want to download the installer. What we're going to be doing is installing the latest version of Postgres, which is 11.1. So we'll go to Mac OS X and let's click the download button there. And your download should start in the background. Let's now go to our downloads directory and let's double click the Postgres DMG file that was just downloaded. And we'll double click on the install file. We want to open that. And because we're now installing a new program, let's enter in our Mac password. For most of the setup wizard, we're going to be going with the default settings. So let's click Next. We'll go with the default installation directory. And we'll install all the components. One interesting note is that one of the components is called pgadmin4, which is actually an alternative database client that you could use. Throughout this course, we're going to be using the database client DBeaver, which we're going to be installing just after this. If you wanted to, you could use pgadmin as well, but in my opinion, DBeaver is the richer and more intuitive database client, so we're going to be using that through this course. However, we'll still install pgadmin, so if you want to have a look at pgadmin later on, you're welcome to. We'll go with the default data directory. You'll also be prompted now to enter a password. This is going to be the password for the database superuser, and the database superuser has the username Postgres. You can enter any password in here that you want, but just make sure that you remember or write down the password that you enter, because you're going to need it later on when you connect your client to the database. We'll go with the default port, and we'll also go with the default locale. Okay, we can review the installation settings, but everything looks fine, so let's click Next. And we're now installing Postgres. Once the installation is complete, we'll be prompted if we want to launch a tool called Stack Builder, which is just a component that we installed that makes it easy to download and install some additional tools or drivers. We don't need to do that now though, so let's untick that and let's click Finish. So we're now going to be installing DBeaver, which is the database client that we're going to be using to connect to our Postgres database, and we're going to be writing our SQL statements inside DBeaver. DBeaver is a free and open source tool, and you can download it from dbeaver.io. So open up your web browser, navigate to that page, and once it loads, let's click the download button. And what we want to install is the Community Edition, which is the free version of DBeaver. So let's scroll down. For Mac OS X, we want to pick the package installer with the JRE, which stands for Java Runtime Environment. Click on that. And the download should start in the background. Once the download completes, let's go to our Downloads directory and run the installer. We'll hit Continue, Continue, Agree to the software license, Install. And because we're installing some new software on our computer, we have to enter the password for our Mac. And that's done. We've now installed DBeaver.